Hello, dear friends. Not everyone handles the change of consciousness well. Opinion piece. Overwhelmed psychiatrists. Growing emotional distress. They are saturated with work. They cannot cope with their practice. Feelings of anxiety and apprehension. Psychiatrists and psychologists collaborate. Let's start. The increase in psychological and emotional discomfort is saturating psychiatric care services in Spain and delaying care for patients with mental disorders, since 37% of the population suffers from some mental health disorder. Psychiatrists recognize that they cannot cope lately and that it is very difficult to reach all the people who need it. The waiting lists are endless, and it is a pipe dream to see a patient once a week or at least once a fortnight. Spain has less than half as many psychiatrists per 100,000 inhabitants as other European countries such as Norway, France, or Germany. In Spain, there are 6 psychologists for every 100,000 inhabitants, while the European average is 18. Waiting lists become longer. The period between consultations lengthens and mental disorders become more complicated before they can be treated. This leaves many people in a kind of care limbo with mild or moderate emotional problems, without timely access to the care they need. Differences. The psychiatrist focuses more on the biological and pharmacological treatment of mental disorders, while the clinical psychologist focuses more on the psychological and behavioral treatment. A psychiatrist is a doctor who focuses on the treatment of mental illnesses, including prescribing medications. A clinical psychologist focuses on the evaluation and treatment of mental and emotional problems through cognitive behavioral therapies and techniques without being able to prescribe medications. The increase in emotional distress in the population is overwhelming the capacity of the mental health system, leaving many people without the support they require. Agendas are saturated in primary care, and professionals have little time per patient, which makes it difficult to adequately address emotional distress. In the specialized network, resources are limited and cannot respond to all demand with long waiting lists. The health crisis left a trail of emotional discomfort, fueling anxiety and social distress and exacerbating latent mental disorders. This has generated a growing demand for help for mental health problems, with which public health cannot adequately address due to lack of human resources. And safety. The Atlantis report tells of people struggling with feelings of apprehension and anxiety due to the threat of mass layoffs. People are facing feelings of apprehension and anxiety due to economic insecurity and the threat of layoffs. Economic insecurity, marked by uncertainty in the financial and work sphere, can generate significant concerns in people, affecting their emotional and mental well-being. The possibility of layoffs as a reflection of job instability contributes to increasing anxiety and fear in individuals as it directly impacts their job security and financial stability. These factors, combined with the pressure of staying afloat in an uncertain economic environment, can trigger a host of negative emotions that affect people's quality of life and emotional balance. Economy. The OECD increases its growth for Spain to 1.8% in 2024. Kristalina Georgieva says economic growth is weakening. Bitcoin boom driven by investor concerns about debt. Cash Paddle says the house is too rotten and needs to be cleaned. The Fed maintains interest rates at their highest level in 23 years. Wall Street is confused and divided over how many times the Fed will cut rates this year. Powell will not give in to the market's greatest fear. According to the X22 report, inflation is out of control and the Fed knows it cannot control it. Gregory Manarino affirms that the Fed is willing to intervene in the market by injecting liquidity and increasing the national debt. Manarino affirms that the system is collapsing at an accelerated rate and that this fact is not a mere coincidence. According to Michael Snyder, an economic shift of historic proportions is underway. People are worried about economic conditions. In some cases, sales fail, and in others, it seems almost impossible to find a decent job. China's trade in the BRICS registers an increase in the first quarter of 2024. The US sanctions hundreds of companies, including Chinese companies, for helping Russia. On May 1st, Zimbabwe launched its new gold-backed SIC currency, triggering the financial reset. Zimbabwe considers itself a gold mine surrounded by diamonds. Geopolitics. Turkey suspends all trade relations with Israel. Erdogan accuses the West of lacking courage to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. The European Union presents a €1 billion aid package for Lebanon in a bid to stem the flow of refugees. German inflation is growing again after the withdrawal of aid. Inflation rises in Germany as energy costs rise. Euro depends a lot on Russian fertilizers. The British Parliament considers sanctions against Russia ineffective. The French president does not rule out sending troops to Ukraine if Russia breaks the front. Europe faces a triple existential risk, warns Macron. In quotes, a military and security risk, an economic risk to our prosperity, an existential risk of internal incoherence, and alteration of the functioning of our democracy. The Marines' F-35B falls short of minimum performance by 45%, according to a report. Protests. Student protests intensify amid police repression. Protesters increase at the University of California, Los Angeles. More than 130 arrested when dismantling the camp at the University of California. More than 1,900 protesters arrested on U.S. university campuses. Scott Ritter believes the student protests are the most important thing to happen in decades. The media wants you focused solely on the university protests because they are planning something big that they are trying to snake in without you realizing it. Curious. Two solar storms, separately, collided with the Earth's magnetic field yesterday, Thursday, May 2nd, causing a strong G3-class geomagnetic storm with auroras that reached southern Washington. The Matt Gialich company wants to extract minerals from asteroids. A scientist says he has evidence that the universe could be a simulation, including our own life. A meteor shower will arrive on May 4 to 5 with 50 meteorites per hour. Russia studies a mysterious particle that affects the entire universe called a neutrino. Discovered the mystery of the shine of gold to accelerate the development of new technologies. A younger generation is turning to dumb phones. The desire to disconnect from technology and detox is evident. Dr. Michael Salla reveals that Nazi Germany used a global network of tunnels to create a Fourth Reich with flying saucers, aided by inner earth beings belonging to a non-human civilization. In addition to Antarctica, they created bases in Greenland, Norway, Sweden, Chile, Argentina, and Brazil, with the help of families of European industrialists. Americas. Migrants desperate to reach the US border travel inside cargo trucks. Some never make it. López Obrador's approval rises to 60%. The Central Bank of Argentina lowers the interest rate from 60 to 50%. The free trade agreement between Ecuador and China comes into force. Colombia denies that the break with Israel is directed against the Jews. Spain will be the guest of honor at the Bogota Book Fair in 2025. El Niño is the key to the draft that stopped the Panama Channel, according to a study. Cuba welcomes more than 50 nations at the 42nd International Tourism Fair. The president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, asks the country's attorney general to investigate all officials of his government to prevent corruption. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.